Hello, health heads. Welcome to this dose of healthcare uprising.
I'm your host, Heather Pierce. Over the last 20 years, I've worked all over the healthcare industry from startups to Fortune 5 companies in marketing and communications. Now I'm leveraging my experience and connections in the healthcare realm to bring you this healthcare uprising.
And I'm your producer, Jeremy Carr, and I have absolutely no experience with healthcare whatsoever. I'm your resident man on the street, as it were.
But we're here to inform, educate, and create awareness on all the latest innovations in healthcare, as well as the most basic aspects of the healthcare system, like how to use your benefits, what's a PPO versus an HMO, why Medicare matters, things like that.
Yep, that's what healthcare uprising is all about. So why don't you tell them what's on the agenda for today, Heather?
So today we're meeting with Dr. Kerrykrauss, a board certified OBGYN and medical director with Natural Cycles. She helps empower women with non-hormonal birth control and menstrual health education. Inspired by her own struggles with infertility and PCOS, she aims to support women in understanding their bodies.
And there you go. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Kerrykrauss from Natural Cycles.
Hi, Dr. Kerrykrauss. Welcome to the Healthcare Uprising podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited that you're here. And so today we're talking about natural cycles and your role there and what natural cycles is all about. So why don't you just give us a little background about who you are, what you've been doing, what brought you to natural cycles, what your role is, and really what this app and this platform aims to achieve.
Sure. I have been a practicing OBGYN for close to 10 years now. Done full scope OB surgery, deliveries, clinic, all of it. And I think, I've been with Natural Cycles for about the past a little over a year. It was my first venture into the femtech world. And I think what really motivated me to join Natural Cycles was feeling like when I was in the clinic, it was very difficult for me to give women adequate education and information in the limited space of a visit. And I also noticed that there was just a real hunger on the part of women for more, and it the possibilities of what we could do with technology that I was seeing coming out in a lot of different ways, I think really made me excited. And when I heard about Natural Cycles and ultimately had the opportunity to join them as a medical advisor, I think that was something that really excited me because this is something that we've needed in women's health. We need better education out there. Women are hungry for that knowledge. And I think what's great about it is it not only allows you to really get a better understanding of your cycles and specifically when you're ovulating, because that's something that a standard period tracker does not tell you. And so by measuring your basal body temperature, that can tell you when you're ovulating because the progesterone levels go up, which causes a slight increase in your temperature. And because of the advent of wearable devices, so for instance, like the Oura Ring and the Apple Watch, it's just made that whole process of measuring your basal body temperature so much more convenient and accessible to a wider range of women. Although that basic technique of fertility awareness has been used for a long time, this, I think, was a very game-changing advance because it now just becomes so much more convenient and user friendly.
And you mentioned you're an OBGYN, so you've been practicing for quite a while. And and obviously this ties into what Natural Cycles is trying to do. And and we're going to talk a little bit about my experience with earlier on in my life when I was trying to get pregnant for the first time when I could have used this. So but as your role as an OBGYN, have has it been kind of I would maybe over the course of all the patients that you've seen, did you see a demand for something like Natural Cycles, even in your patients, either for the purposes of prevention, right? Like monitoring when you're ovulating so that, I don't get pregnant, and also for the issues of infertility. So, which was kind of where my experience comes from personally.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. And I think like we've really seen an increase in women wanting to understand more about their bodies, right? So they're going to the internet, they're going to, Google and social media to try to understand what was going on with their symptoms. I mean, there's a lot of things that historically have been brushed off as, women just complaining or, sort of like, especially now menopause is getting a lot of attention for, women who have been suffering with pretty debilitating symptoms for years and not really understanding what that's about and, how to treat it. So I think that unfortunately, in some ways, has brought about a lot of the misinformation that we see because women were searching for something. And, sometimes we're going to the wrong sources and people were almost profiting off of the fact that women want more information in like a negative way. But we've also seen now, I'm really excited to see a lot of solutions like this where, they're evidence-based, based on science, well studied, FDA regulated. So I think that's something that has really made a lot of the doctors in the community excited. Like, okay, finally, now we have a good place to direct our patients to be able to get that information that they're looking for.
So natural cycles obviously geared for women looking to get pregnant or not get pregnant, depending on, or maybe they'll use it for all, right? I mean, I could see it being used over the course of, a woman's, several years, right? As you're either trying to plan a family or plan when you're going to start a family, or not. But in so the company itself, though, it's been around since 2000, 2013, is that right?
So yeah, I believe it was first started in 2013 to 2014 and then received FDA clearance in 2018. So it's
Okay.
been and its sort of flagship mode was birth control, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
That was sort of what it was initially created to do. And then since then, we've really expanded to be a all-encompassing women's health platform. So the goal of Natural Cycles is to meet women at whatever stage of their reproductive life and even post-reproductive life that they're in. So, we have birth control mode, planned pregnancy mode, because obviously, if you're preventing pregnancy by identifying the fertile window, you can then flip that to help plan pregnancy. And then we have a follow pregnancy mode that gives you week by week advice and guidance and insight into your pregnancy. And then we just launched postpartum mode last
Oh,
year. So we have now NC postpartum mode, and also I'm really excited about we're going to be launching a perimenopause mode coming up soon. So sort of
yay.
getting into that, sphere of things, and yeah, we really want to be with a woman at every stage of her life
Yeah.
to help educate and inform her on her
And our
body.
hormones are all over the place.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, I think, excuse me, we really have done some amazing, work in trying to figure out what women need in every stage of life. We actually still have puberty mode is kind of, on in the back of our minds, but
Oh.
I think that's really the overall goal is to be at every stage.
Um, can I ask a troublemaking question?
Of course, yeah.
Uh-oh.
In today's climate, privacy on things like this is a very big deal in a lot of places for a lot of people. What kind of security do you have on that? Like, is this people's private information going to stay private? Because if they're reading it through their Apple Watch, are you able to keep that information private for your customers?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point and something that we've focused on a lot, especially in the past few months. There's a lot of our users have come to us with concerns about data privacy. And the thing is, there's a lot of different products on the market for cycle tracking, right? And they have varying degrees of security. Some do sell their app data. We do not sell our user sensitive health data. So that's one of the things that we can offer by being a subscription model. So, because they always say when you don't pay for something, you're the product, right? So there has to be some sort of value that the app is getting from having you use the app. In our case, because we are we charge a monthly fee and, potentially even annually an annual fee. We do not sell any of our user sensitive data. We also have pretty advanced data security and encryption, which is also something you always want to make sure an app has, very rigorous security standards. Our security standards are actually monitored by the FDA as well. We comply with their security standards because we are an FDA cleared application. And so I think the other thing that's really exciting is that we have a go anonymous mode. So there's actually a way that you can completely decouple your name and your birthday and all of your personal information from your menstrual cycle data.
Oh,
Again,
wow.
it's an optional mode, not, you don't have to use that mode, but if you're particularly concerned about data security, go anonymous mode actually means we can't even as the company link you to your data. Only you
Oh,
have a
wow.
PIN that can link you to your data. And so even, if we were subpoenaed for information, excuse me, and go anonymous mode, we
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to link you to your data.
That's
Brilliant.
that's good.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, great
No
question,
problem.
Jeremy, because
No,
you make
really
a
good
good point.
question.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
important thing in a lot of places now, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to protect our
Unfortunately, very
data.
important right now.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I mean, I
unfortunately.
wish it wasn't a thing, but it sounds like anyone's stuff will be as secure with you to begin with as it is in a hospital
Hmm.
because it's kind
Right.
of the same regulations at work, and then you have that anonymous mode on top of it. So yeah,
Hmm.
you guys definitely covered your bases.
All
That's
the
good.
all that HIPAA and
Uh,
The
PHI.
HIPAA.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
That's
Yep.
private health information for anyone listening
I
who doesn't
used
know what PHI stands for. I try to
Yeah.
drop my acronyms and spell them out as often as possible in this show.
I
Always
used
a
to
good
work
idea.
for a recycler who destroyed confidential materials. I'm very aware of HIPAA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah,
You never know
we
what
had to
your
be real secure with those medical records we were destroying, let me tell you.
yeah, you
For
just don't
sure.
know where your stuff can end up nowadays.
You
Very, very
And
true.
so like great setup about what natural cycles does. We're talking about, preventing pregnancy, planning pregnancy, infertility issues. Okay, so I still need to talk about my little story here at some point. But can you describe kind of like what is it? We know it's an app, right? And there's a thermometer, a basal thermometer, and it reads, from your Oura Ring or your Apple Watch or, whatever it is. Can you talk just kind of a little bit about like maybe what that experience feels like, how somebody might use it? It's more like kind of the tactical piece of this.
Sure. Yeah. I think probably for simplicity's sake, I'll just sort of describe it in birth control mode since that's, our
Okay.
most common, most popular mode at this point. So basically, the foundation of the way the app works is that it uses your historical cycle data. So, if you put in sort of how, in general, how regular your cycles are, coupled with biometric data such as the basal body temperature. Okay, so and again, depending on the wearable, technically it may not be basal body temperature, but that's the foundation, right? We have your menstrual cycle history and we have your body temperature. And by putting those together, Natural Cycles uses an algorithm, which then predicts your likelihood of fertility on any given day. So, again, the experience of using the app typically is that we recommend you measure temperature at least 5 days out of the week for optimal experience, just because the algorithm needs enough data to be able to make a good prediction. But typically you'd wear your Oura Ring or your Apple Watch, or we do actually still have a large contingent that like the thermometer, which we have Bluetooth thermometers, so they upload automatically to the app. But you measure your temperature in some way that uploads to the app, and then the app will give you either a prediction of either a red day or a green day. So a red day would be you might be fertile, you should either abstain or use a backup method like a condom, or a green day means you're not likely to be fertile and you're okay to have intercourse unprotected. So, I think that's the basic experience. And obviously, when you first start using the app, depending on how regular your cycles are, you may get slightly more red days than green days, which should eventually, you'll get more and more green days as the app and the algorithm learn your unique cycle and they get more data. So that's qualitatively, that's kind of what the experience is like. Hopefully that was relatively clear.
Yeah.
I like that it errs on the side of caution. That's a
Mhm.
good idea.
Definitely. Yes.
So is something like this, and I read the origin story about the founders looking for, a way to prevent pregnancy naturally. So this is really great for somebody who doesn't want to be on birth control, right? Doesn't want a Mirena or whatever, or be on the pill. Now there's people actually that go on the pill for the purposes of like regulating hormones, right? Because they have different conditions and stuff like that. So they get maybe the added benefit of preventing pregnancy. But so this is really geared for somebody who doesn't want to be on some kind of um, pharmaceutical or implant.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a large percentage of our user base either can't take hormones for a
Mhm.
medical reason or has had side effects that they didn't like from hormonal birth
Right.
control. So, and as you said, hormonal birth control, as an OBGYN, I think probably any OBGYN you talk to will, say how valuable hormonal birth control is in our toolkit in terms of controlling, heavy bleeding, also some negative aspects of your period, such as like PMDD. I mean, there's a lot of good uses for birth control, also like
Mhm.
cancer prevention. It actually helps prevent ovarian and endometrial cancer in PCOS patients. So definitely a lot of benefits to hormonal birth control, but increasingly we're seeing more and more women interested in a non-hormonal solution. And in my practice, I had oftentimes seen those women resorting to sort of less effective methods, like things, if they weren't interested in a Paragard IUD, they might want to use condoms, which typically are at about 87% with typical use. Or they just use withdrawal, which is, in the 70% for typical use, meaning that
Yeah, I
like,
thought we
you know,
stopped that in the 70s.
right. Yeah, exactly. But,
Apparently
so
not.
those were the things I was seeing my patients use, if they really didn't want to be on hormonal birth control, but weren't ready for an IUD. And, I think that's why I was really excited about having a solution like natural cycles, which is 93% effective with typical use. And so that, because of the effectiveness of the algorithm and the convenience of using the wearables, that's really what enabled us to have a much better effectiveness rate, even than a lot of the other fertility awareness methods that are out there, which were like a lot more cumbersome to, be charting all of your basal body temperatures and, your past cycles. And, the Natural Cycles app really made it more user friendly and easy
Mhm.
to monitor your cycles and know whether you're fertile or not.
I'm going to ask a Jeremy question.
Yeah.
Jeremy, this is usually your
Whew,
job.
everybody hold on.
What is basal body temperature for just like basic understanding? I know what it is, but not everyone who's listening may not know, especially if it's
Yeah.
kind of new to you. So,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah. And to be clear, not all of the methods and the wearables that we integrate with use basal body temperature specifically. Actually,
Mhm.
the Oura Ring uses it's like called an average temperature but usually measured while you sleep. But
Okay.
really in actuality, basal body temperature is, your temperature first thing in the morning, usually after a good night's sleep, before you get up out of bed, before you drink water, before you do anything else, because it's basically the temperature when your body is at its like basal resting state. So that's again the reason that's used is because it's sort of free from other external influences, and like things
Oh.
like when you're active, your basal body temperature goes up, a little bit.
Hmm.
So or sorry, your body temperature goes up. So that's the reason that's typically used, is because it's generally considered to be the most consistent. Um,
Okay. So I remember, okay, now's my chance to talk about my story.
yeah,
So
yeah.
back in the olden days of 2007, yeah. Um, I was trying to start my family. And my son actually saying he's turning 16 in a few weeks here. So about 14 years ago, because it took me 24 months, 22 months to get pregnant. And I had gotten to the point where I was one of those people that I didn't want to use any kind of pharmaceuticals or intervention of any kind. I was definitely in my granola crunchy phase. Actually, don't know that I've ever left that phase, but
Yeah.
and so being natural was really important to me, and I didn't want to do infertility stuff. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out, right? And so I started doing the basal temp monitoring daily, but I was writing my temperature on like a legit paper calendar, which, in 2007,
Yeah,
it's all you
Yeah.
had because,
exactly.
we had cell phones, but they weren't, they didn't have these kinds of functionalities, and apps and stuff weren't like the thing. So, I could have used it at that time. Um, and even with my second too, because I ran into the same issues again, quite honestly. But yeah, I remember taking my basal temp, and now I'm realizing, now that you explain this, I was totally doing it wrong. So that explains a lot.
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
but it's a lot of
hmm,
work. You have to know a lot, and like
yeah.
I think it's a lot of work for just your average person.
And
So
no one was advising me. Like, I didn't actually go to my OB and say, OBGYN and say, hey, I am struggling with this, but like nobody really guided me through any kind of program. Like, either it wasn't available, or I don't know, or I just wasn't honest enough about it with her, and so she therefore couldn't help me because she was a great doctor.
yeah,
But yeah, I definitely remember doing that. Like, I was trying to get pregnant though. So it wasn't even like I wasn't using it to prevent. I was using it to find out when was I fertile, which
right.
I clearly did not. I was not testing myself properly. So that explains a lot. But there were some other things going on too. And I did ultimately get pregnant. So like I said, my
Yeah,
son's 16.
yeah.
So, but
Well, no, I think, and your story, I think, is something I hear a lot from women of,
mhm.
sort of struggling to figure out what's going on. When am I ovulating? When am I fertile? Especially for women who have irregular cycles. So, and I'll just share too, like I have PCOS and I've had it since I was, I think, since I was, first started having my period. With irregular cycles, 40-day cycles, 28, like it would just be all over the place. And
Mhm.
I also had the same experience when I went to start a family. I think it took us almost a year both times, and I had actually made an infertility appointment both times when I found out that I was pregnant with my first and then my second. And I was using LH strips, the ovulation test strips. I'm not sure if that's something
Oh
you used, but
gosh, I did
that's
not use those, but I remember
ugh.
that. Yeah.
And it would just be maddening to be, peeing on a stick every day, waiting to see that ovulation, the LH hormone go up,
Mhm.
and especially in PCOS where it can be, sometimes it just doesn't even happen. And so you're testing like every day for 30 days and wasting all this money on ovulation test strips. And so it's a very frustrating process. And you end up feeling like you don't understand what's happening in your body, or your body's failing you. And I think I hear that from a lot of patients going through the same thing. So
Yeah. And I imagine this natural cycles could be something that a provider, that an OBGYN like yourself could say to a patient, right? Hey, you should try this. Is that part of the operating model, and kind of like is that a distribution channel for natural cycles?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think the really nice thing about natural cycles that I personally appreciate is, again, even though it is a subscription model, it's covered by most commercial insurances. So,
Oh,
yeah. So basically, what you can do as
Jeremy's shocked again, by the way. Like, anytime insurance covers something, he's like, wow.
In
Yeah,
every
no, I
episode
know.
we do, at some point they go, "Oh, and you can get insurance to pay for it." And my mind blows out. I'm like, "Wait, insurance is paying for this?"
Yeah,
Although
yeah,
in this case it
exactly.
makes a lot of sense because preventing pregnancy and stuff, it's
Right.
that
Family
insurance
planning.
companies cover vasectomies, no problem. Any guy who
Yeah,
wants one can get one.
Yeah.
So why
exactly.
shouldn't any woman who wants to not get pregnant have the tool to do that?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's actually a lot lower cost than, even birth control pills, for instance. So I think, because again, the actual, interface is not the software is not very expensive. And, obviously the device can vary, but again, you can use it with just a basal body thermometer, which is included with our subscription. So, again, it's a relatively, cheap method of birth control compared to a lot of the other things out there. And, IUDs that cost, like potentially $1,000 each,
Mhm.
or I apologize if that's not exactly
Um,
the correct number, but definitely more expensive
It's a
than
lot. Yeah. And
ours.
it's
Yeah.
kind of an invasive procedure, especially
Yeah.
getting them removed. I've heard some awful stories from friends
Oh
of
yeah.
mine. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, thank you.
And
Yeah.
actually,
wow.
just a side note there, that's personally, even though like I think us OBGYNs have love-hate relationship with social media. I think that's one of the good things that's come out of social media and women's health is that finally women were like, wait, why aren't we getting anesthesia for these procedures? Like men get handed scripts for like 30 Percocet when they get a vasectomy and get all sorts, but like then we have IUDs inserted and like we're not being offered anesthesia
Nothing.
or numbing medicine or anything for those. And it was really, I think a lot of us OBGYNs who had been trained not to use anesthesia for those procedures were like, why aren't we doing this? And I think
Mm.
that was something good I saw come out of social media personally. But
There you go. It's good for something, I guess.
yeah, right.
Can I ask a brass tacks question of you? What is the monthly subscription cost, and how long does it take? Like once a woman's on the app, how long does it take for it to really, like you said, there's like it takes a while for the real green days to show up and all that.
Right.
How many weeks or months would you say it would take for them to really get their cycle locked in where the app's really paying off?
Yeah. So great questions. And I'm hopefully saying the correct numbers. I apologize in advance if these are not, but I believe our monthly rate is 14.99, and then annual I believe is 120, somewhere around there. So
Totally
again,
reasonable.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
totally. Anywhere
yeah.
close to there is reasonable. Yeah,
Hmm.
And again, if you can get insurance to cover it, all the
Even
better.
better.
even better. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the answer to that question. Oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the answer. Oh yes, how long does it take to get the app to sort of know your cycle? So the good
Right.
news is that you can count on the app to make accurate predictions from day one. Now
Oh,
again, you should be prepared that you may have a larger fertile window just because the app is still getting to know you, but the accuracy of that fertile window is going to be the same on day one compared to later in the year after you've been using the app for many months, because again the app errs on the side of being conservative. So if it's not sure if you may or may not, if you may be fertile or not, it's going to give you a red day. So that's, I think, one thing that is really nice about the app is you can count on it to be accurate from day one.
And
And again,
just is that just because the algorithm's so good with the data you've collected already?
right. Yeah. So again, if the algorithm isn't sure, then it errs on the side of giving you a fertile day. So again, you may start out with maybe 50% fertile days. And again, this is not necessarily the same for every woman. But you may get 50% fertile days in the first cycle and 50% not fertile days, but then that should ultimately improve, as long as you're tracking data regularly, taking your temperature, and as the app gets or the algorithm gets more confident with making those predictions, you will eventually get less and less red days and more green
Yeah.
days.
So
And oh,
so
sorry,
it's
sorry, just
sure.
wanted to say real quick, another way you can actually get more green days is to incorporate optional LH testing. So if you want to do an ovulation kit, the app actually prompts you to say, hey, if you want to give the algorithm an extra boost, you can take an LH test today or an ovulation test to help the algorithm further narrow down. And you can actually get more green days that way.
Okay. So it's immediately effective, but it gets better for you as you like personalizes for you as you go. But
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, that's great.
and I imagine, I mean, that's just like anything that is, I would say, based in AI, right? Obviously, there's a role of AI in this, I would guess. And maybe we should talk about that a little bit. And then, like anything, right? You feed the AI monster over time, and it just, takes all of it. I feeling like I'm hearing like Cookie Monster in my head right now. Yeah. And so like the more information over time, it just like perfects itself. So,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And if you continue using it, like now, right, you've got it for all the different phases of a woman's life. Like imagine that, right? Like now you've got this like huge, like if I've been using it for the last, what, 8 years or however long it's been around, what a difference I would probably see, right? From like where I go from pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum. Well, I was past postpartum 8 years ago, but still somebody,
Yeah.
and then going into like perimenopause, which I want to talk about that too, is about how it kind of serves all the different phases and like how somebody might utilize that. But yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Absolutely. Yeah.
so role of AI, what is
Yeah.
What is it?
So I'm going to be so the AI is relatively new. The basic algorithm that, was initially developed has not, did not incorporate AI technology. Obviously, the AI is a more recent add or it's been a more recent addition.
Mhm.
But and I would probably have to confer with our data specialists exactly on how the AI is incorporated into the technology. But and I believe it's in our latest submission to the FDA. Our newest version of the algorithm is going to incorporate AI. So I don't want to misspeak and say
Mhm.
that we are currently using AI in our algorithm, but I mean, at this point, anything doing with having to do with data prediction is going to incorporate
It's all
some
AI.
machine
Yeah, they're
learning
gonna.
or AI. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the easy way to keep the app running
Yeah.
once it's built. But
exactly.
you built it without it though. So it's
Yes.
all. Oh, okay. Well, that's actually
Yeah.
really impressive these days.
Right?
Yeah, and like I think Dr. Alina Berglund, who was, again, I know you guys are probably familiar with the origins story, but for maybe some of your listeners that are not, Lena Berglund is a PhD physicist who was literally studying the Nobel Prize winning Higgs boson particle at CERN in Switzerland and was interested in a non-hormonal birth control for herself. She had had a bad experience with hormonal birth control, and she knew she was going to be planning to have a baby soon, but not necessarily right when she was, working on the Nobel Prize winning discovery. So
Kind of
she
busy.
part of right. Part of her job was interpreting large data sets and using algorithms to make predictions. So she figured, well, why can't I apply this to what I want to do with my cycle and basically just use fertility awareness principles and make them so much more powerful. And that's really how natural cycles was born. So it was, I think such a cool just story of a woman taking her own knowledge and expertise and applying it to what she, wanted to learn about her body and wanted to accomplish. So yeah, I think it's a really cool story.
And what they learned about the Higgs boson pretty much rewrote the universe. So that
It,
woman's had a busy time. She's had a busy time.
Jeremy, I'm
definitely.
not surprised you know what that is.
Yeah.
He does the weirdest things, and I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm really a
Yeah,
philosopher, but
he
it
is.
got me into the layman's physics. I philosophize about physics a
Yeah,
lot.
it's
Yeah.
That Higgs boson gives me a lot of ammunition, let me tell you.
gonna have to do some research on that.
Yep.
Um,
That's for another time.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing the origin story. And it's funny, and Jeremy, I'm sure you're thinking this in your head. A lot of the people, the founders, the folks like you who come from these startup companies, the femtech, all this stuff. They the ideas are originated from personal experience of not having access to something. Which I love that, right? Like it just makes it all that more meaningful, especially in femtech, right? Female health has been largely underserved, ignored. I mean, the fact like we were talking about before, why aren't we getting numbed for some of these procedures while a dude, sorry dude, but
No, I'm with you. 100% with
gets
you.
here's a bunch of, pills and like we are been, we are put through pain. I mean, it comes up how many times in the show where women were not included in clinical trials for women until like regularly until like the 90s or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, no wonder we don't get numbed up. They're just you birth babies, you're fine.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, you can take it.
Exactly. Oh gosh, I could talk for an hour on this subject. It's just like, the fact that like I think it's only 2% of healthcare or research dollars go to women's health, despite us being half of the population or more, and then I think
Crazy.
another really poignant example is how even as an OBGYN, you know, perimenopause and menopause, all of our patients will go through this, right? This is, even compared to something like sexually transmitted diseases that yes, we will have a population that get those, but it's not going to be all of them, right? We and I can speak for, at least in my program, I maybe had one or two lectures on menopause, and what women go through at menopause. I think a lot of my colleagues even don't feel comfortable treating the common symptoms of menopause and prescribing hormone replacement therapy. And this is I mean, just the fact that there was so little education for me as an OBGYN around these topics goes to show how, they're just our what we were experiencing, what our symptoms were, it was just ignored. And that it was just, they'll be fine. They're going through the change of life and, they'll get over it. Well, actually, these symptoms can be really debilitating and they're really important to treat. And I'm just so happy that menopause is kind of having its moment right now and that we're getting
Hmm.
really a lot of good education out there and finally some good solutions and a lot of menopause focused practices that are opening up for people who have, for OBGYNs who have really done a lot of extra training, and it's a shame they have to go through extra training, but I'm glad to see that at least there seems to be a lot of attention and change being put into this because it's
Yeah,
it's really
just
needed.
in time for me. So
Me
I'm
too,
I'm a
actually. Yeah.
I'm a proud user of HRT and progesterone. It keeps me sane. Thank you to MIDI Health, actually, who I actually ultimately got. I've been with them for about a year and a half now. And so
Nice.
I drop them every once in a while. I'm hoping maybe they'll come on the show at some point. But
If
yeah,
you say their name enough, they
I
have to.
do,
I think that's
right?
the
Yeah,
rules.
I'm gonna
right.
force them, but great segue though, talking about perimenopause and menopause, and so natural cycles has now kind of, in addition to the fertility, planning, postpartum support, what is the app and the platform doing for these kind of, later stages in life?
Yep. So good question. I don't know that I can give as many specifics because it's still in development, but what we sort of currently have in our product ideas is to really use cycle tracking to give more insights into what stage of menopause or perimenopause a woman might be in, which actually there's some recent research that states it might actually start way earlier than we think. And I think actually I was just looking today at a study that showed that I think like I might be misquoting this and I apologize if I am, but I think by Flow Health, they looked at that women between the like somewhere around the ages of 35, about 50% of them were showing signs of perimenopause, which again, I have not reviewed this study in depth, but these changes might be starting a lot earlier than we have thought in the past. And so, you know, our goal really with the perimenopause mode is to provide more insight into what stage you might be at, what symptoms you might be experiencing. So there's some, interesting ways we might be able to track hot flashes as they're happening, because obviously they change your body temperature, right? When you have a hot flash, your skin temperature elevates, and there may be possibilities of ways we can track that. And so, typically the way we work at Natural Cycles is we release a MVP version that we get the basics of what we want to get out, and then we get user feedback and we expand our offerings based on what our users are telling us they want. And I think that's something we do really, really well is we listen to what our users are telling us that they want more of. And we have some very, very talented people that, can get all that and very engaged user base as well. They tell us what they want and we do the best we can to listen and deliver. So yeah.
Women are good at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We like to talk and share, I think, and actually and have community. I think that comes up a lot too in a lot of these conversations. Do you have any kind of online community for folks that use the Natural Cycles app?
Yep, we have very, very active social communities,
Not surprised.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, yeah, all of the above. I think we have a group that's called, I think, the official Natural Cycles community that women post questions all the time. Again, just and users will chime in and say, "Well, this worked for me," or "This is what I went through," and it's just really cool to see that, women finally have a place where they can go and, ask all these questions and feel like it's a safe space to share. So,
Yeah, our moms did not talk about these things.
no.
They just
Yeah.
didn't. And so it's like all the way from, the time I was a young girl getting my period through the infertility issues that I had, and then, perimenopause, like there was no playbook for this. There was nobody talking about it. And, to your point, like we are having our moment, like, and especially with perimenopause and menopause, we talk a lot about that.
Yeah,
Um, I talk about it pretty openly. I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna shout this from the rooftops because,
Yeah.
when I feel like I'm legitimately on fire and
Yep.
like my skin is sweating, but it's perfectly dry. Like that is, the hot flash from hell.
Right.
I don't even want to know what my body temperature is during those moments. Although because I'm on HRT now, it doesn't happen very often. So,
Right. Yeah. I think I just
yay.
saw a meme posted or a reel of a woman who she was bald, but she was having a hot flash. And I think
Her
they
head was
literally showed the
steaming.
steam. Did you see
Mhm.
this? I
I
was just
did.
like, wow, if there was ever a good visual of what a
Yeah.
hot flash
Oh,
feels
yeah.
and looks like, that's it. But
Yeah. It's like walking outside in the dead of winter when it's 10 degrees out, and I would go stand outside because it was just so awful.
and like to
You're an
that point,
OB/GYN.
sorry.
Do you
Yeah.
know why hot flashes happen? Is there like a defined medical reason and like an actual like what's happening in the body when that happens?
Good question.
So yeah, that is a great question. I hope I can give a good answer. I think, and probably some of my more menopause trained colleagues could do a better job, but essentially, it's thought to be due to the declining levels of estrogen. So estrogen is thought to have effects on our blood vessels, and as those levels decline, I don't know that we totally understand what triggers the hot flash and particularly and why it happens in some women and not others. But yeah, basically due to that declining level of estrogen, the blood vessels experience changes that cause them to give you a hot flash. So
Well,
I apologize if that was,
no,
but I mean, this is part of why we need to understand it better
it
because,
honestly
there's
amazes me how far we've come, yet how little we still know about our own bodies in so many
it's
ways. Like we don't
I
know how
think
we
it's
work. We
still
still don't really know how we work. As good as our medicine is getting and the advancements we're making, we still don't really know how our bodies work. It's
I
kind of
think it's
crazy.
crazy. We don't know how labor is triggered. Like women go into preterm labor and or go into, regular labor. We have no idea how that happens. Like, how is that still possible at this day, in this day and age that
Yeah.
we don't understand the hormonal signals that trigger that process to happen, even though it's such a common and ubiquitous process. It's just it's mind-blowing to me.
That is crazy.
That's part of why I'm a philosopher right there. Questions like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with you've got a great audience for probably a younger audience, right? The more in their birthing years or the reproductive years. And then you've now, of course, in development, like you said, the perimenopause, menopause piece. So do you need more people to start kind of getting in there and using that? Because your ads show up in my social media feeds like all the time now, by the way.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
know.
should I
They're
do
very good
this?
at that.
Yeah. Good marketing. Well done because with putting my marketing hat on.
Yeah, no, I know. Our marketing team is if I say so myself, pretty impressive. I'm in
Yeah.
awe at the job and our social media people too are
Yeah.
incredible. That's one thing about the company. Really, everyone in every team, at every department they're just superstars. Like our graphic designers, our data scientists. I mean, really just top-notch, amazing at what they do. But I mean, to that point, yes. I mean, we right now we have a user base of about 4 million people that
Oh,
have used the
wow.
app. So yeah, and I can't remember exactly how many countries now, but I think it's US, Canada, South Korea, UK, and Sweden. So we're expanding into more and more countries. I may have missed some, I apologize, but yeah, more and more countries and translating into more and more languages. So our goal is to really, yeah, keep expanding, keep growing, and you know, keep getting. I think the research is actually one of the things that excites me the most because obviously the more users we have and the more data, and we do always ask for consent when we use a user's data and use it anonymized, so it can't be directly linked to them. But we have a very, very engaged user base that we get good response rates when we ask a questionnaire and just about what they're experiencing. And then we've partnered with a lot of research institutions as well to do. We actually published a paper on the changes of the COVID vaccine caused in the cycle.
Oh,
So how that, yeah. So really, very, very cool stuff. And yeah, I felt like I landed a dream job coming on at Natural Cycles. There was just so much exciting things we could do. And, again, with having such a great team, it's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I don't know. I think you might have just gotten your newest customer because
Yeah, I'm
sign
signing up right now.
Jeremy's on it.
Oh, we have partner mode actually. So that's
Oh, well.
another cool feature. So especially for people trying to or couples trying to conceive, we have obviously there's the user facing mode, but then you can also give a mode to your partner where they can see on their phone whether or not you're fertile on any given day. And again, it's sort of more bare bones information. You only show what you want them to
Mhm,
see, and but it's cool because then they feel more involved in the process of trying to conceive or preventing pregnancy. So
mhm.
yeah,
Or in my case, to alert when I might be raging.
right.
Alert, alert. Jake's like, I'm gonna leave the house for 24 hours. Her levels are really spiking today.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely.
He can always come hang out at my place if he
Yeah,
wants
I'll
to.
just send him to your house, Jeremy. Oh my gosh. I said we like to have fun on here. So
Oh,
we
it's
joke
great. I
around a
love it.
lot, but
Really though,
this is good stuff.
that's a great feature that you can get the partners involved like that because yeah, I mean, it almost makes it a game in the end if you use it right.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind of
mean,
Right.
it's
And at
and
least
just
speaking
such a
for
useful tool, like everybody knows what's going on, and yeah, it's
right.
great.
And I know,
awesome.
like, I think there's a lot of men that really want to be more involved. Like, I know when I had my first, we had sort of a lot of issues postpartum. I had trouble with breastfeeding, and obviously sleep was all over the place. We were definitely in the camp of like, oh my gosh, why didn't someone tell us we were going to be hit by a truck with this like,
Hmm.
newborn stage? And I had mastitis a bunch of
Oh,
times, and my husband was just like at a loss for what to do. He didn't know how to support me. He's like, I can't do the things that she's doing. I don't know how to help. And I think he even said to me he would really appreciated sort of more partner guidance and partner involvement. And I think that's something we definitely want to expand in the future. And we even talked about it for perimenopause mode as well, that, having the partners have some insight into what's going on, like why they're experiencing what they're experiencing would
yeah.
be really helpful.
Because they don't get it. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much I tell him. You still don't understand. You know?
Yeah.
It's true. We don't. We
It's
we never go through anything like it. There's no
mm-mm.
reference in the male experience for perimenopause. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a scary time.
for sure.
I mean, we
For sure.
we just literally lost like
Yeah.
deer in the headlights, man. What do we do?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Well,
Right.
I'm glad that you're, expanding where you're going and you're building out. I mean, ultimately, you're building out an app that can serve a woman through her entire life, ultimately.
Yeah.
So, and what a cool thing to be able to see like all those fluctuations and you start to see that. Anyway, I'm super interested for myself at this point. So I'm getting on the natural cycles wagon.
oh, there you go.
That's
Love
gonna
it.
happen.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Check my insurance, see if it covers it.
I know. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think
Use
I
it
love
for
it
a
too
year, and
as
then we'll
a
bring it back on.
yeah. I was just gonna say I love it too as a doctor too because you can actually download a PDF of your cycle information,
Oh, cool.
including like all the ovulation data, which is again what I think a lot of what distinguishes us from a period tracker, is that gives you just a lot more insight as an OBGYN. So you can actually upload your data to your OBGYN or just print out a PDF and bring it into your visit so you're not sitting there going like, especially when you're having issues with your cycle, I think it's helpful to have that way you can
Hmm.
instead of spending half the visit trying to recount to your OB what's going on, you can have that to, you know, help
Yeah.
make the communication easier.
Oh, that's a great tool too. And it gives you something to like visually look at and say, yeah, this is happening, right? Like this is not
Yeah.
just me like anecdotally sharing. This is proof, right? When they say proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, real
Yeah.
data.
Data is
All
a good
starts with
thing.
the data.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Before we start to wind down here, I just want to give you an opportunity to share any like big milestones, anything coming down the pipeline that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about or share quickly and just kind of give our listeners the heads up about to keep their eyes open for.
Sure. So, like I said, the perimenopause mode is our, what we're working on currently. I think, again, we're always looking for, research projects and, things that are good for us to be looking at, and I think we definitely listen to our users in that respect. um I think the only other thing I just wanted to share was just even my personal story of using natural cycles. I think when I first heard about it, like I said, I was maybe a little skeptical from the OBGYN perspective, but when I started using it, again, having PCOS, I think I realized sort of how much of a game changer it was just even for my health. So like even though I wasn't trying to conceive when I started using it, because I just had these irregular cycles for years, I never really knew whether or not I was ovulating. And for someone with PCOS, and obviously I know this because I'm an OBGYN, but if you go for a lot of cycles without ovulating, it actually can put you at risk for endometrial cancer because
Mm.
you're sort of stuck in the wrong phase of the menstrual cycle for too long. And so you're stuck in like the growth phase of the endometrial or sorry, of the menstrual cycle. And so, that was something I was just interested to know for my own health. And what using natural cycles enabled me to do was that I could see, yeah, I'm actually not ovulating in at least 50% of my cycles. And so I actually made the decision to go back on birth control because I needed
Oh,
that endometrial, well, we call it endometrial protection.
mhm.
And that's another thing that I think we could expand on in the future is having like a PCOS mode where, you know, women who have PCOS can do exactly what I did and find out, do I need to worry about being on some sort of hormonal birth control to prevent me from having endometrial cancer someday down the road. So there's so many exciting ways that I can think of to use the app. And I just wanted to share that because of my own personal story. But I think, it just goes to show how much we can do with this technology.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super grateful that you and I connected and you came on the show. I think this is going to be a really very informative for many of our listeners. Obviously myself too, because like I said, I think I might have to go subscribe. So, and with that, tell us where we can find you online, social media. Where would somebody go to get started to download the app and get that subscription going?
Yep. So our website is naturalcycles.com. That's probably the easiest place to go. We're also, as I said, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. So I think the handle for all of those is at Natural Cycles.
Mhm.
So pretty easy to remember. Also, for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn under kerrykrauss. So definitely feel free to message me. And I I love talking natural cycles. So all my friends are sick about hearing about it. My family, I talk to everybody about it because I'm just so excited about what this technology can do. So yeah, definitely anyone can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and or my email address is kerry.krauss@naturalcycles.com. So definitely can email me as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. This has been another wonderfully fascinating conversation that I was able to insert one of my personal stories into. I do that all the time.
And I got to drop a Higgs boson reference.
Hey,
That doesn't happen every day
Who
on a,
thought
there you
that
a
would
go.
happen?
podcast.
Yeah.
We've checked all the boxes
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So,
Breaking new ground.
yep, yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kerry Krauss, for joining us today on Healthcare Uprising. This has been a great conversation. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having
Thanks.
me. I appreciate it.
And there you go. Our conversation with Kerry Kress from Natural Cycles. That was a fun one. But what were your main takeaways from that one, Heather?
I wish I had natural cycles when I was trying to get pregnant the first time. Although I would have used it for infertility, but natural cycles is a great option for those who are wanting to start a family but want better control of when it happens and don't want to take the pill or can't. Sometimes people can't or don't want an implant. That's can be kind of medically invasive. So yeah, natural cycles is a great talk about healthcare in your hand, an app and tied up with the Oura Ring, being tech based and wearables like Apple Watches and Fitbits and all that kind of stuff. So Oura Ring's just the latest out on the market, and Natural Cycles working with Oura Ring is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And tracking, your basal temps and all that kind of stuff to know when you're fertile or not fertile. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they're definitely the epitome of innovation and putting the power of healthcare in your hands, right?
Yeah, and that's what it's really all about these days is, the system isn't really doing much for people as far as, properly tracking your progress through the system. So I like that all these people are coming up with stuff that let you do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's
Every,
it's like a good half of our episodes, if not more so far, have kind
yeah.
of ended up being about something like that.
There's an app for that.
Yeah, there really is. There's an app for everything now, no doubt.
Yeah. And it is cool too. Like I had mentioned, just for the use of infertility as well in tracking, like trying to get pregnant. I talked a little bit about my experience back in the day of
Right.
covered wagons.
Well, you
Um,
finally figured out what you're doing wrong, so
yeah.
there's that.
Exactly. And then also even cooler, I think, they started in the fertility tracking space, um, but they're expanding into perimenopause and menopause. And she even dropped us a little Easter egg about puberty because, women's hormones and our fertility or lack of fertility or, anything around menstrual cycles and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that starts when we're young
Yeah.
women and changes depending on the phase. So really cool to know that natural cycles is going to be able to be a solution for women across their entire lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool.
I'm
It's,
excited to become their first newest biggest fan and user. So
yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing your experience with that. And
yeah,
I kind of dropped a little thing about, get signed up and bring her back in a year and talk about it. I wasn't really kidding.
yeah,
So maybe we'll see kerrykrauss again at some point in the future on the Uprising
I
here.
think it's a good idea. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. But in the meantime, anyone out there listening or watching, if you could take a minute to hit all those happy fun buttons on whatever platform you're on, the like, subscribes, maybe share us with a friend who might be interested in all this stuff we're talking about here. You can find us on Patreon as well if you want to support the Uprising financially. We have a bunch of different levels of support you can throw us there, starting at just $1 a month. Every dollar counts, but the big thing is just hit that like button. That's really, really the best thing you can do for us because we just want to know we're liked. But where else should they look for us, Heather?
You can find us online at healthcareuprising.com and of course on all the social media platforms or just about anyway, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Just search Healthcare Uprising Podcast and you'll find us. Also, if you have a story to tell, you got a new product, new business, or you startup founder, or even a human story, because we love our human stories, give us a shout and just shoot us an email, healthcareuprising@gmail.com. You can even get in touch with us through any of our social media platforms as well. And that is pretty much it. And YouTube. Did we talk about YouTube?
Oh yeah, we're also on YouTube. Just search Healthcare Uprising, and we'll come right up. Yeah, we
Yeah.
got video and audio, and the Patreon is also video with a little bit of a longer format. So you get a slightly different experience depending on where you go to take in the content here at the Uprising.
Yeah. We've got lots of options. So
Yeah.
I think that's about it. So that's it for this dose of Healthcare Uprising, folks. Keep looking for the good in the world. Sometimes it's where you least expect it.
This has been a Shut Up production.
Shut up!